Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's great to see you. This is a reading for Aquarius moons, or if you have significant Aquarius placements in your chart and are needing a feminine energy to work with or balance within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Aquarius, we're going to get started with your reading. So we're starting off here with this card. We have the Benevolent Guide, which I love so much. It doesn't come out very often, and it's such a beautiful combination of colors. And this card is talking to me about, like, I feel like you, Aquarius, so this could be flipped, but how I'm seeing it is kind of like you are seeking out some sort of guidance is kind of how it's feeling to me, perhaps from a specific person or a specific group of people or like a community or something like that. And the guidance is absolutely being answered is what this is feeling like, because you have here the Lightning card, which I feel like is talking about that, right? Like somebody who's perhaps helping to bring light to a situation, which is coming through with the Mortification, which is kind of like this energy of, well, it kind of brings in this energy of the underworld to me, or kind of like a difficult transition that perhaps feels uncomfortable in some way. So that is perhaps what you're going through, the context of this reading. And then you have these two cards. So the first of all, the Four of Wands, which I feel like is like, this is the Benevolent Guide energy. So it could be like a group of friends or a support system of some sort, who you're going to in order to get some sort of like clarity, perhaps. This card, especially this one, talks to me about sort of when you're in the same space or together, it puts you in the flow state is kind of how it's feeling, in order for you to receive inspiration, because you have here the Queen of Inspiration, right? The Queen of Wands, which I'm feeling like is your energy when you're with these ones or this group or whatever it is, right? It's like when you're in this space, you're all lit up is kind of how I'm seeing this. And I always notice here, it's like she's receiving inspiration or downloads or ideas perhaps of like what to do, or like whatever it is. You're receiving inspiration is kind of how this is feeling to me. But then you also have here the Five of Emotions. And I feel like this is sort of when you're away from this energy, it's kind of like there's this perhaps overwhelm of emotions is kind of how it's coming through, right? Or feeling any sort of like grief or sadness or perhaps depression, but it doesn't have to be like that chronic, maybe, but it's kind of just like, so perhaps seeking out guidance. Or it's interesting because this one did not come out with the Mystical Sister, which is kind of how I see this energy, right? Like sisters being sort of the ones who provide support and who lift you up, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what this energy is coming through. Of course, they don't have to be feminine in any way. It's just kind of like your support group, however you identify with that. So it's like, I feel like that's what this is talking about, because it may be there. I feel like you're going through with this energy here. You have here the Protection Cave and the Endurance Rock, right? Which I feel like is your energy. But again, this whole reading could be flipped. It could be that you're being sort of the benevolent guide or a mystical sister to somebody else who's kind of going through this energy. The protection and the endurance, right? Having to use a lot of energy to get through a difficult period or transition. And then here with the Magic Alchemy card, because I always see this as like two hands coming together in order to create something, right? So it's kind of like when you and this group or these others are together or in the same vicinity, a lot of things just transform is kind of how it's feeling, or energy moves, or difficult situations can sort of be transmuted and alchemized, especially because I'm using the Alchemy deck today, which I took a bit of a break from, but it's kind of like thinking about alchemy as being sort of taking heavy energies and transforming them into gold, which I love so much, because in in the first 3 alchemy cards here, you do have the gold card, right? So it's taking something heavy, like lead, and transforming it into gold or something of value, whatever that is. Of course, not necessarily material value. I feel like all of this energy here that's coming in is kind of like just like, it just feels like clarity or moving stagnant energy is what that's feeling like. So the first card we have here is the fog card, which is so interesting. Which is really interesting, actually, because so fog obviously is something that's not clear, right? The thing about fog, though, is that it's either like over time, like once the sun comes out, the fog will dissipate by midday, right? That kind of thing. But I feel like it's more so like the fog clears when you're with this group is kind of how it's feeling, right? Like things become more clear when you connect with them is kind of how this is coming through today. And the reason why I find this card really interesting, because yesterday I had to take my dad to get cataract surgery in his eyes, right? So he had to remove the fogginess in his eyes. And it was such an interesting experience for me, because usually, like, whenever my dad and I travel together, he's the one who's driving, but because of the circumstances, I was the one in the driver's seat. I feel like that shift in perspective, that's kind of what's coming through here, right? Getting a shift in perspective because perhaps you're taking almost like a passenger seat, or like you're not the one who's necessarily driving, is kind of how it's coming through with the spirit guide. It's like somebody else is guiding you or driving you somewhere or bringing you someplace, so that you can get clarity or something like that. And it's really interesting that the story that was coming through. So this reading is a bit delayed today because there was just so much information and it was getting like a little bit overwhelming, so I had to take a break. But the story, like the experience that I had yesterday with my dad in the car, when we were driving, one thing about my dad is that he has this very intense sort of fear of being late to things. He hates being late, so he always arrives like 30 minutes early, that kind of thing. And so because I was the one driving, I feel like he was getting a little stressed about being on time, because I was the one driving, I took a different route than what he would have taken if he were the one getting us there. And I feel like that was making him anxious. So he was bringing up things, and of course anxious because of the surgery as well. But things like he mentioned this car that was passing by us, who's being really aggressive, right? They were sort of swerving in the lanes and things like that. And then, which I just listened to. I just let him express himself, that kind of thing. Also understanding what energy he was in. And then after the surgery, he did have a little bit of like anesthesia, so he was a bit loopy. But it was really interesting because I was noticing all of these like cop cars just driving in the area that we were in. And then on the way back home, while he was in more of a relaxed state, right? Both because of the anesthesia and because the relief of having the surgery over, he was being more, his energy was much more open and relaxed, is kind of how I'm seeing it, right? It's open and relaxed is what this Queen of Inspiration is talking about. This is kind of like after the relief of whatever this is, right? And so, it was so interesting, very unprompted. He just started telling me about this story of when he was younger, where he was saying, when I was in my 20s, I remember this stretch of road specifically because this is where I got a speeding ticket, which is so interesting because it illuminates such a pivotal aspect of who he is, right? Hates being late, right? Absolutely, just like will leave much earlier in order to avoid that sort of feeling. he has to be at least 30 minutes early for something. But as a younger man, he got so many speeding tickets, perhaps because of that same thing or whatever. But it's kind of like he, in his more relaxed state, was able to see some sort of truth about, I don't know, whatever this resin is, right? Because the resin card I talk about as being sort of like a stuckness or something that's preserved. Today, especially because it's coming out with this gold, right? These cards look extremely similar to me. Sometimes this resin card, this like little bloom in the center, looks to me like a pain or a loss or something like that, right? Because it kind of looks like a pinprick of blood. So it's kind of coming in with this energy of like some sort of preserved pain, right? Like something that caused pain in the past, because the reason he brought up that story of him getting a speeding ticket is because of that speeding offense, he lost his insurance or whatever. There was a financial cost that came with that experience, which is also very different, right? Like because of who he is now as a person, it's like a very different shift. So instead of him speeding now, he now just leaves earlier, that kind of thing. I feel like there's this kind of like this transition between the resin, right? Something that's a painful experience that actually becomes gold, right? Like it reveals who you are, or reveals what it is that you care about, or in this case, like how perhaps your perspective has changed, or how you've grown, or how you've matured, that kind of thing. So I feel like there's a situation like that happening for you, where it's kind of like in being in this sort of open state, perhaps, or like receiving inspiration or connecting with whoever the Four of Inspiration is for you, it's allowing you to transform some sort of painful experience into something of value, right? That's sort of how it's coming through today, which is really lovely. And then you have here these two cards. So of course the Completion West and then the Growth Plans, right? The Completion West is always sort of the key piece of information. But I feel like today I'm just really drawn to the brain, which is talking about like almost like a rewiring or like a reframing of your perspective that's allowing you to grow, which is really lovely. I really love this growth card. And specifically what's coming out here. So with the tarot cards, we have here the Muse of Emotions, which I sort of see as being like this. So always some sort of emotional challenge that you've overcome is what I'm seeing with this one, right? Like some sort of difficult emotional challenge that you are overcoming, perhaps with the help of others or a specific other. And it's actually, I feel like, bringing this energy in with the Six of Inspiration. So this is talking about success, but today it's kind of looking like a dream or a goal that you're trying to achieve, right? Especially because you have here next the page of materials, because it's kind of feeling like this one I sort of see as being like modeling yourself after someone, right? Like it's kind of, or just like getting inspiration from nature or from others or from whatever. It's like this is the goal that you're trying to achieve, and this is you actively trying to manifest it, is perhaps what this is talking about. There is a bit of a timidness that comes in with this energy, or kind of like a shyness, or like a because it is a page, right? It's a bit more like a beginner perhaps, or just like trying to embody this energy but not quite sure how to do it, especially with this card coming out next, the Eight of Materials, which I love this card so much, because it's talking about, like, first of all, so Eight of Materials, the Eight of Pentacles typically talks about like your work and focusing on whatever's in front of you, that kind of thing. Today it's kind of looking like this is the goal, or this is perhaps even like with the Four of Inspiration, the others that are helping you in this task or whatever it is. And it's kind of like there's a, with this one here, because this Eight of Materials, I always sort of see as being kind of like, it's a sight, like when you first see it, it's so confusing, or it's a little bit scary, or there's like a lot of unknown about this, that it's kind of just like, what am I looking at, is what this card kind of brings up, the feelings of it. And so that might be part of it. It's like this is the goal that you're trying to achieve or work on or whatever. But there's something about it that's perhaps like overwhelming or confusing or a bit terrifying, is kind of how I see this. Especially because the next card to come out here is the Moon, right? So if you look at these two cards, because the Six of Inspiration, I was just drawn to these figures, which is why I'm saying that I feel like this is not quite you yet. This is feeling more like the goal or the manifestation that you're working towards, and it's kind of like you may be still here, is what this is feeling like, especially at the Moon, because these figures here are almost identical to me today, especially with this big sort of goal or focus, let's call it. And especially because it's coming out with the Moon, I feel like it's kind of bringing in this energy of illusion, or like mystery, or just like not sure what it is that you're supposed to be doing, or like moving towards, that kind of thing. It's coming in kind of, again, the Moon can also bring in a lot of overwhelm as well, right? There's a lot of overwhelm perhaps about what this is, right? Because this energy, it's an extremely powerful energy, is what this is feeling like. So it's extremely powerful, and it kind of feels like, so it could be something like that, where it's like what you're trying to achieve or work towards feels almost like a position that's too powerful for you, is what this is feeling. Because especially this one feels very timid, feels like the not quite sure. There's like a almost like an imposter syndrome kind of energy that comes through here. It's like, but that's what you're working towards, or it's like the ideal or something like that, right? But at the same time, even though it's an ideal and something that you want, it's also not something that perhaps you feel ready for. Maybe it is, which is really interesting. But then it's like, there's a big shift in the next couple of cards, which is really interesting. So it could be after you've like met with these ones, or it's like after sort of like the big surgery metaphorically is over, and you're kind of like in a more calm and open state. It's like you can see the gold. Because what was so interesting to me in that experience yesterday that I had with my dad, it was kind of just like all of that energy was brought up by him unprompted. I was basically just listening, right? I was just listening. I wasn't necessarily like probing or anything like that. It could just be something like that. It's like this group just listens to you, perhaps, or like it's not what's really wanting to be stressed here. It's not something that they are speaking or telling you, right? It's like they're not giving you the solution. They're not giving you whatever actual guidance, perhaps. It's kind of just like they're sitting and listening to you as you figure it out yourself, is kind of how it's coming through. Especially because you have here the sap of the moon plant, which is such an interesting card, because this is all of this sort of moon energy. But this one specifically talks about that the answer that you're seeking is within you, right? Within your subconscious, within your desires, within your dreams, that kind of thing. The answer is there. And I want to say here, it's like this is the gold. This is the thing of value is within perhaps like your past experiences, or whatever it is that you're trying to overcome or endure, or perhaps even like protect yourself from. There's some sort of thing of value that is wanting to be brought up to the surface perhaps, but it's interesting as well because even when you're in this state, right? Even when you're in this state here, the truth is still here. It's just kind of like perhaps like not being open to what that truth is until you're in this state, right? Because this is both of your energies. This is sort of the overwhelmed state or the anxious state perhaps, or the state that's like before when you're getting ready for the surgery. And then this is the state after when you're sort of open and relaxed and there's a relief that comes in, is what this is feeling like. That actually reveals some sort of truth about yourself or about the situation that you're in or something like that. And what I really love here is this, you have here the sugar card and the joy music, which is talking about like connecting to very simple pleasures, right? Like very simple, happy energies that bring you joy is what this is talking about, right? Like it's like once you figure out what that thing is that perhaps is causing pain or is perhaps like something that is being protected so that you don't experience the pain of it, perhaps. It's like that's where the value comes in. That's when you can sort of release that energy and connect with the sort of simple pleasures again, which I really love. And then what I love to come out next here is this, the Magician, right? Because it's kind of like taking all of this energy, right? This I often see as sort of being like almost like a geyser, but in reverse, right? It's like after this sort of resin energy, the stuckness is released, all of this energy starts flowing again. It's kind of how it's feeling to me. And then especially here with the moon, right? Because it's like this feels perhaps like an insurmountable task in some way, or something that's just like so perhaps overwhelming that you can't see how exactly you're going to get out of the situation maybe, or like to shift the energy or whatever. But then with the Magician here, it's kind of like all of this moon, right? This big obstacle perhaps, or something like that, is now so small, right? It's like making, instead of making a mountain out of a molehill, you're taking a mountain and making them into molehills, if that makes sense. That, and I feel like the shift is just playing with this energy a little bit, the sap of the moon plant, which is, it's not easy. This energy is not easy at all. There's so much value in it, right? There's so much value in sort of like diving really deep into your subconscious. But there's a lot of fear here as well. There's a lot of like difficulty or murkiness, right? Like things that are uncomfortable at first, but are necessary to experience in order to get like the full picture of it. And I feel like here, what's really interesting here is the building atoms card. So this card I really love because it's bringing in these two energies, right? Because it kind of feels like perhaps this energy here is kind of like the big goal, or like some sort of big challenge perhaps, which is still there. But with this Magician energy, it's kind of feeling like breaking it down into little components is kind of how it's feeling, especially with the atoms, right? Like breaking down this big challenge into little components that will build together in order to work towards the goal. Because it's not like this energy is necessarily going anywhere. It's not like it's going to suddenly disappear, but it's like breaking it down into little molehills so that it becomes a surmountable task instead of an insurmountable task, is what that's feeling like, which is so interesting. I've never seen this card, the Building Atoms card, as like the Hermit energy, but that's sort of what's coming through today. It's kind of like a hermit energy. And what I love, because you do have the Hermit here as the last card, but you have here the Emperor and the Queen of Pentacles, the Queen of Materials, which I love so much because this is talking about like reclaiming your power, right? I feel like there's something about here with the Emperor, I feel like there is absolutely like steps that you can take in order to go towards this, or like to make, like to channel this magician energy a bit more. I feel like perhaps that's a bit of like the holdup, perhaps. And then with the Queen of Materials, because it's a progression from the page, right? But I'm seeing this as kind of like, once you're in this place, because this is sort of like how you're seeing it now, or like when you're in sort of that five of emotions energy, when you're in this space, this task or like what you're being asked to do feels very challenging or very scary even, maybe, right? Like what it is that you, but I feel like you know already, you know what it is that you have to do. It's kind of just like from this energy, when you're in sort of an anxious or emotional, perhaps, or whatever this is, sad, perhaps, maybe, like just feeling sad, the tasks feel impossible to do, or just like really challenging in some way. But it's like when you're in this Emperor energy, right? It's like it's easy, or there's like because this card talks to me about like being proud of your accomplishments. And I feel like, especially because it's kind of like here, right, with the moon, the big challenge or the big obstacle, it feels kind of like there's a pride because you've made that obstacle your own in some way. Like you've embraced it, or you've claimed it, perhaps, or you've accomplished something, is kind of how that's feeling by the end of this reading. And I don't know how long it's going to take. I have no idea what the timeline is for this, but with the breath card coming out last, I feel like what this is just reminding you is just like focus on your breathing, or just like being really present in the moment. Because it's kind of like, I feel like you're naturally going to be moving in this direction, right? With this Eight of Materials, I feel like the momentum is bringing you there naturally, is kind of how it's feeling. But it's kind of just like, again, with the guide, right? It's like you're not even the one who's driving. Someone else is driving you to the whatever event, let's call it, or the experience. It could be that you're just experiencing the anxiety of going to that place, and it's just like reminding you to focus on your breath, perhaps, or the present moment. Because once it's over, once this sort of challenge is surpassed, it'll be just like very open and relaxed. And it's like there'll be this sort of, perhaps even like feeling proud of what you've accomplished, is what this is feeling like. All right, Aquarius, I'm going to leave the reading there. If you're interested in the extended, you can find the link in the description box below. Thank you so much for being here. If this message resonated with you, please consider liking, subscribing, or leaving a comment down below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.